Hello, hi everyone. Welcome to this newest episode of the Zero Hiccup podcast. And today I have with me Allie Kosela, who's a director, client experience, and Salesforce expert at Medcan. And Allie is here to especially talk about the development practices that go into building Medcan. So, welcome, Allie. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. It's quite an honor. We're doing
Same
good
here.
today. Yeah.
Same here, same here. And Ali, I was equally excited because I see you have a very comprehensive experience around technology. So why not we start from there first? Tell us more about yourself and your background, and till this day, the different things you have been doing.
Yeah, for sure. So I've been working in technology in some way for the past 15 years. I kind of started on database work, but usually more on the marketing side. So lots of marketing technology. And I've
Mm-hmm.
since transferred into a pure technology role. Right now, I run the Salesforce practice at Medcan, which is a health and wellness company based in Toronto, Canada. We've been around for over 30 years. And since its inception, the company has been very technology forward. So, had built our own electronic medical record and CRM
Oh, nice.
before, the
Mm-hmm.
Salesforce was available and the standard EMRs were available. So we've always really been pushing the boundaries in terms of what's possible with technology in healthcare. So it's been really interesting to see the organization evolve as the industry and the technology availability has evolved.
Mm-hmm. So expand more about your day-to-day responsibilities at Medcan, please.
Yeah, sure. So as I mentioned, I run our Salesforce portfolio. So I have a small but mighty team of 4 developers, 2 system administrators, 3 BAs, a PO, a project manager. And we are in charge of all things related to Salesforce and the connected applications. So we run in sprints. So our team typically does a release about every month. So our teams are, starting our mornings off in a stand-up, letting everybody know what tickets they're working on, talking about any blockers that we have, and really making sure that we're staying on track. So the day for the team is very much based on the day-to-day tickets. And it's really important for us that the teams actually get a chance to, have that time to talk to each other and make sure that everybody is on board with what's happening for the day, so that we can make sure that everybody is operating to their fullest potential.
Mm-hmm. Great. So I see that you have a complete crew under you in a way. So, why not you tell us more about like some key factors that, or that contribute to the developer velocity for you, your
Yeah.
team, and what are the initiatives that you guys have taken?
Awesome. Yeah. So I took a sneak peek at your survey results, which thank you very much for sending those. It looks like some of the things that me and my team are really leveraging. It looks like a lot of other people in the industry kind of care about the same thing. So for us, we really look at developer velocity based on performance. I don't really care what tasks you're doing day to day. I'm really more concerned about the output. So for me, it's less about saying, okay, like, has my team logged in, and are they, what's their, how long are they logged into Teams, and all of those types of things. It's really about, what are your outputs and what are we doing to make sure that you are able to get to those outputs. The biggest thing for me is empowering my developers. And so, they know how they work best. If they know that they are the best versions of themselves at 1:00 in the morning doing their development work, then so be it, right? I really want them to work in a way that makes them feel comfortable and with the tools that make them feel comfortable. So that's something that we really, we try to be very open-minded about is how they're working.
Mm-hmm.
Really also making sure that the developers are doing the developing, right? So I've got 3 BAs on my team. Really important that everybody on the team is playing their role. So that, for example, my BAs are going out, they're gathering the requirements, they're asking all the really hard questions, they're making sure we fully understand the scenarios. before it even comes to the developers, so that the developers aren't stuck in meetings all the time trying to get more information. So one of the strategies that we have, and this is based on feedback from the teams, is I empower the team to block off areas in their calendar and say to people, I am not available. So again, it's taking the feedback from the team, specifically the developers, to say, what do you need to help you work the best, so that they're able to focus on the code and the problem solving. And if they need to meet with one another to kind of talk things through, they've got that ability versus being stuck in business meetings all day.
Right. So, Ali, you already mentioned some of the things that you have been doing. Do you recall any particular example, like real life, when something, say, like before applying that technique and then after applying that technique, the change happened? Like, do you recall in your journey?
Yeah, so we implemented Agile probably around 2018, 2019 at Medcan.
Okay.
And so it's been quite a process for us as an organization to really shift the mindset on things, right? So it's, the ability to give feedback, the ability to come together as an organization and say, actually, we change our priorities based on what's happening in the business versus I'm set for the year, like, don't talk to me until I'm done. So that has been something that's been a journey for us. One of the first tools that we implemented as part of this was Jira, which I think is very common for a number of organizations. So we've got Jira,
mostly the central piece around Agile.
And really part of what we've done in terms of the tools implementation is try to bring the rest of the business along for the ride with us. So showing them user stories, saying, hey, have we captured everything that you're looking for? Making sure that we're documenting everything on those tickets so that, if a developer moves on to a new project, a new company, we've got what we need from them, right in one spot. Also bringing in tools like GitHub, using Bitbucket, actually having this process of DevOps, not doing changes in production. It's those types of things, and bringing that process across the company, right? Where it's very, for those of us working in tech, it's like, well, yeah, of course, this is what we do. But to then educate the business to say, we know that this change, like an item on the drop-down menu, seems like you should just be able to do it while I'm talking to you. But to have a process of, we start in a scratch org, we promote to the different environments, we do robust testing to make sure nothing has broken as part of that process, and then we can release it to you, is really bringing in those processes has helped our developers not get stuck on these tangents, or for them to be pulled in a different direction to say, I was working on this one thing and now somebody wants a new field. It's like, there's a process to all of these things now. And I think the process has been just as important as the tools.
Right. Makes sense. So elaborating further, I'd like to know more about the culture at Medcan, because I believe, of course, your team is your team, but then, of course, they're part of the bigger corporate culture at Medcan. So would you like to share more about, how the culture has thrived around developer productivity overall at Medcan, and, how do things go?
Yeah. I'm really lucky at Medcan because my stakeholders are very engaged in what's happening. So I have members from across the business, whether it's finance, operations, clinic, sales, marketing. Everybody is very much engaged in what we're doing, especially because Salesforce, as the technology that I'm responsible for, touches every area of the business. So the culture at Medcan is one of understanding that things need to change. It's a culture of collaboration, which has been really great. And we're really starting to see that there are more people raising their hand to be kind of the technology experts, those super users, and wanting to learn more and understand a little bit more about the technology side of things. So in that case, it's really incredible. We also have a lot of ideas. We've got, some really great plans over the next 3 years of where we want to take the company and what we want to do. And so there is this culture of like, okay, we may need to try new things. We may need to do things a little bit differently. And so the organization has been really great in that respect. So also understanding that developers need the time and the space to do the development work, and that getting feedback and having demos and getting that back and forth business has always been really helpful, and people have leaned into that. So I think that my team is very lucky in terms of the culture and the stakeholders that we have.
So Ellie, talk about the negative sides of it. Like, are there any common pitfalls or challenges that companies face when trying to improve developer velocity and productivity? And if yes, then how does Medcan avoid or overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I think that, and having talked to colleagues that work at other organizations, it's always kind of the same thing, right? And especially when you've first introduced something like Agile into an organization, people will Google it and think that they are like, they'll Google the definition of Agile. And it's like, well, that means I get to change my mind whenever I want. And it's like, okay. Sort of, kind of, right? So bringing people along for that journey to understand that, when we set a sprint, it's kind of locked. And yes, I build in that kind of 5 to 10% of like, oh, something's happening. You build that into it. But really, I think bringing in, and we're at a good place now because we've been doing it for several years. But in the beginning, I think any organization that tries to tackle Agile development runs into this kind of like, well, I just want this one more thing added. I just want this one more thing added. So that can be, I think, a bit of a challenge for people. And how we really overcome that is having steering committee meetings. So on a monthly basis, it's really, my role is to make sure that the rest of my stakeholders understand, okay, as a group, we've prioritized these functions and features. It lines up to this strategic initiative, or it lines up to this, immediate project that you're trying to launch. So this is why we're focusing on these things. And it's kind of set for the next month. Is everybody okay with this? If not, you guys get to jockey for whatever it is that you want added. But that has been really helpful, like bringing the stakeholders along for the planning ride, I think, is a big one. And then I think any organization where you've had a number of different developers, or maybe you've implemented something with like a consultancy or third party, and then you're handing that over to an internal team, and those developers aren't there anymore. When you're inheriting a code base, there's always gotchas. We always joke in our team, we're turning over rocks expecting worms, and sometimes we find a pit of snakes. So it's always just knowing that these things are going to happen, planning for those things, always building in some room. So I'm always challenging my developers, is that how many story points you want to give it? Do we really think we can get it done? Should we build in some buffer room for those snakes that we find? Really just making sure that we're being honest with ourselves. And then having the room, and, again, I have great stakeholders. I can go to them and say, listen, we'd planned to release on January 1st. Here are some of the things that we found, and we would prefer to release this in a more complete version. We're going to delay the release, or we're going to work on it a little bit more. We need to talk to you a little bit more because we're thinking of some scenarios. So it's really just having that open dialogue, and thankfully our CIO also is amazing and an advocate for these types of things. Like, it's okay to slow it down and take the time to do your discovery and do the right job the first time, instead of constantly having to go back and fix things.
Right. Yeah, that's very comprehensively that you've covered it. And I think pretty much a situation at most companies as they transform themselves. Yeah. So my last question for today, Ellie, would be like, looking into the future, what do you think are the biggest opportunities or areas of growth for improving developer velocity and productivity at Medcan and in the industry as a whole?
Oh my, that's a big one. Well, I am personally very interested to see what role AI is going to be playing in terms of faster access to code repositories, faster access to sharing. Are there certain kind of like repeatable bits of the development work that AI might do in the future? Like, who knows? So that's always an area that I've definitely got one eye on. I think one of the biggest things, not just for Medcan, but for any organization, is technology literacy at every area of the company. So whether you're frontline, coordinator, executive level, having an understanding of what it takes to develop certain pieces of technology, and the understanding that just because you can describe something of what you want the technology to do doesn't mean it's going to be that fast to build it. And really understanding the processes that are in place, the testing that you should be doing, the demos, the onboarding, the training, all of those other like less sexy pieces, if you want to call it that, of just like really understanding the full scope of rolling something out. So technology is there's so much that we can do with technology, and it's such a catch-all term. But I think ultimately having that literacy across your organization is the biggest kind of multiplier of developer velocity, because it allows them to really focus on delivering the product versus having to have this conversation about why it's going to take so long, or why do I need this more information, or why do we need to do testing for 3 weeks on a thing that took somebody a day to build. So I would say that for me is the biggest piece.
Yeah, the push and pull that happens.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so that's where we'll conclude this part of the podcast. But thank you so much, Ali, because this has been really very, very comprehensive, and I think very much straight to the heart. So thank you so much for being a spot.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a delight.